presented by soundlibra.com. Explore more titles via the link in the description or at soundlibra.com. Building unshakable self-belief.
That sounds amazing, Alex. Before we dive in, a quick note for everyone. While we're exploring the psychology of self-belief, this show is for educational purposes and isn't a substitute for professional mental health advice. If you're struggling, definitely reach out to a qualified professional.
Great point, Lisa. It's about building a toolkit, not replacing a therapist. Now, so many of us feel like we need to be the loudest person in the room to be confident, and that's just exhausting. True confidence is actually a quiet knowing, a deep-seated belief in your own capabilities and worth. It's not about proving anything to others.
So, for our first exploration, we're diving into what you called the whispers of self-doubt. What are we talking about there?
We're talking about that insidious little voice, or sometimes a chorus of voices in the back of your mind. The one that tells you you're not good enough, not smart enough, not ready enough. It's the voice that whispers, "What if I fail?" Or "They'll see I'm a fraud." Self-doubt is incredibly common, and it can really hold us back from reaching our potential.
Oh, I know that voice well. It's like a constant background hum sometimes. Where does it even come from? Is it something we're born with?
That's a great question. While some people might have a natural inclination towards introspection, that persistent, negative self-talk often has roots in our past experiences. Think about early childhood. Maybe we heard critical remarks, or perhaps we experienced situations where we felt inadequate. These experiences can shape our internal narrative.
So it's learned. It's not necessarily a reflection of our actual abilities, but more like a habit of thinking based on past events.
Precisely. And it's not just childhood. Throughout our lives, we can encounter situations that trigger these doubts. Maybe it's starting a new job, meeting new people, or facing a challenge that feels particularly daunting. Our self-doubt can latch onto these moments and amplify our insecurities. It's like an old, rusty alarm system that goes off at the slightest perceived threat, even when there's no real danger.
That's a good analogy. And you mentioned how traditional notions of confidence can feel exhausting. Can you expand on that? What's the difference between that outward, performative confidence and the quiet confidence we're aiming for?
Think about someone who is constantly seeking external validation. They might talk themselves up a lot, boast about their achievements, or become overly defensive when criticized. This kind of confidence is fragile. It relies heavily on outside approval. The moment that approval wavers or a setback occurs, their confidence can crumble. It's like building a house on shifting sand.
Right? It's a lot of effort to maintain that facade, constantly needing to prove yourself.
Exactly. And for the person experiencing it, it can be incredibly draining. They're always on guard, always worried about being found out. It's an active, high-energy state, and it's not sustainable. It's also often rooted in, you guessed it, self-doubt try to cover itself up.
So, the loudness is often a mask for the whispers.
You've got it. Quiet confidence, on the other hand, is about an inner knowing. It's about understanding your strengths and weaknesses, accepting imperfections, and knowing that you can handle setbacks. It's not about being perfect. It's about being resilient. It's like a deep, sturdy foundation for your house, built on solid rock. It doesn't need constant reinforcement from the outside.
That sounds so much more peaceful and attainable. It's less about doing and more about being.
That's a beautiful way to put it, Lisa. Is about being. It's about cultivating a sense of inner self-worth that isn't dependent on external factors. It's understanding that your value isn't determined by your successes or failures, but by your inherent being.
So, in this series, we're going to be learning how to quiet those whispers of self-doubt and build that sturdy inner foundation.
That's exactly the plan. We'll explore practical strategies and mindset shifts to help you cultivate this quiet, unshakable self-belief. We'll be looking at how your body communicates with you, how to reframe your thoughts, and how to find your voice. It's a journey of discovering and owning your inherent capabilities.
And we're starting with self-doubt because it's such a universal experience. It's like the first hurdle we all need to acknowledge before we can move forward.
Indeed, understanding the nature of self-doubt, where it comes from, how it affects us, and why the performative approach doesn't work, is the crucial first step. It allows us to identify the problem, and then, in later episodes, we'll tackle the solutions. We'll learn to decode your inner critic, embrace your body's wisdom, and reframe your inner narrative.
I'm already feeling more hopeful just talking about it. It's comforting to know that these struggles are common and that there are ways to address them.
And that's a key part of this series, realizing you're not alone in this. Many people you admire, people you might see as incredibly confident, have also grappled with self-doubt. The difference is they've learned how to manage it rather than letting it manage them.
So, to recap today, we introduced the concept of true, quiet confidence as an inner knowing, not an outward performance. We've acknowledged the pervasive nature of self-doubt, its roots in past experiences, and how it often fuels the need for external validation. And we've set the stage for our journey toward building unshakable self-belief.
Perfectly summarized, Lisa. And that's what we'll continue to do throughout this series, breaking down complex ideas into actionable steps and memorable concepts. Next episode, Decoding Your Inner Critic. Welcome back. Last time we covered the whispers of self-doubt. Now, let's tackle decoding your inner critic.
That's right, Alex. The inner critic. It feels so personal, doesn't it? Like this little voice inside judging everything you do. It can be incredibly frustrating.
Absolutely, Lisa. And that's precisely why understanding it is so crucial. This inner critic isn't just a random nuisance. It's a pattern of thought that actively works against our confidence, often without us even realizing it. Think of it as a self-sabotage program running in the background.
A self-sabotage program. I like that analogy. So, how does this program manifest? How do we even identify it amidst all our other thoughts?
Great question. The inner critic often speaks in absolutes. It uses words like always, never, should, and must. For example, instead of saying, I made a mistake on that report, the inner critic might say, you always mess things up. You're never going to be good enough. It exaggerates flaws and minimizes successes. Does that sound familiar?
Oh, very. I can hear that always and never popping up in my own head. It's like it's trying to prove a point, but the point is always negative.
Exactly. And its goal, however misguided, is often rooted in protection. It might believe that by being harsh, it's keeping you from failing or being hurt. It's like a hypervigilant bodyguard who's constantly yelling, danger, even when the coast is clear. This protects you from potential external criticism by preempting it with your own.
So it's trying to keep us safe, but in a way that actually holds us back from trying new things or taking risks. That's a bit ironic.
It is, and it's incredibly effective at its job. This inner critic can whisper doubts during important moments, before a presentation, when you're considering a new project, or even when someone offers you praise. It might tell you you're not qualified, that you're not likable, or that you don't deserve good things.
It really picks its moments, doesn't it? It seems to thrive on uncertainty. So if it's always negative, is there any positive aspect to this voice? Or is it just something we need to silence?
That's a fantastic point, Lisa. Silencing it isn't always the most effective approach because it's often a part of us. Instead, we need to learn to decode it. Think of it like learning a foreign language. If you don't understand the words, you can't grasp the meaning. Our first step is to recognize the critic's specific language.
The critic's language. So, What are the key phrases or tactics it uses? We've touched on always and never. Anything else?
Yes, comparison is another big one. The inner critic loves to compare you to others, usually unfavorably. It might say, look at so and so, they're so much more successful, or everyone else seems to have it figured out. It creates this distorted picture where you're constantly falling short.
Oh, that comparison trap. It's so easy to fall into, especially with social media. It feels like everyone else is living this perfect, highlight reel life.
Precisely. And the inner critic uses that to fuel its negativity. It also loves to generalize from small events. One small slip-up can be blown out of proportion. If you stumble over a word during a conversation, the critic might declare, "You're so awkward and ungraceful. You can never speak properly."
It turns a single awkward moment into a permanent character flaw. That's a powerful distortion of reality. And I imagine this really impacts our confidence in our abilities.
Immensely. When your inner critic is constantly barraging you with negative messages, it's hard to believe in yourself. It erodes your self-esteem and makes you hesitant to step outside your comfort zone. It can lead to procrastination, avoidance of opportunities, and a general sense of not being good enough, even when external evidence suggests otherwise. This is the heart of how self-doubt takes root.
So, the first step is awareness, recognizing these critical thought patterns. Once we hear it, what do we do with it?
Once we've identified the critic's voice, its typical phrases, its comparisons, its generalizations, the next step is to challenge it. This isn't about arguing with yourself. It's about gently questioning the validity of those critical thoughts.
Challenge it. How do we do that?
We can start by asking questions like, is this thought really true? What evidence do I have to support it? Or is there another way to look at this situation? For instance, if the critic says, you're terrible at public speaking, you might counter with, I was nervous, yes, but I also delivered my key points clearly, and some people even asked insightful questions. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't a disaster.
So, we look for the objective facts and the small successes instead of letting the critic paint the entire picture in shades of gray, like finding those little glimmers of light in the darkness.
Exactly. And we can also try to identify the underlying need the critic is trying to meet. Is it a need for security? For acceptance? For perfection? If you can address that underlying need in a healthier way, the critic's voice may lose some of its power.
That's such a helpful perspective. Instead of just fighting the angry bodyguard, we're trying to understand why the bodyguard is so angry in the first place.
Precisely. This process of decoding and challenging your inner critic takes practice. It's not a quick fix, but it's a profoundly empowering one. By understanding how this voice operates, we can begin to disarm its power and prevent it from sabotaging our confidence. Remember, the goal isn't to eliminate the voice, but to change your relationship with it.
So, to recap for our listeners, we've learned that the inner critic often speaks in absolutes like always and never, uses comparisons to make us feel inadequate, and generalizes from minor incidents. Its goal, though often misguided, can be a form of protection. The key to overcoming it is first by identifying its specific language and tactics. Then, we challenge these critical thoughts by questioning their validity and looking for evidence to the contrary. And finally, we try to understand the underlying need the critic is trying to fulfill.
You've summarized it perfectly, Lisa. This awareness and gentle challenging are the first steps toward quieter confidence. Next episode, the power of embodiment, your body's silent language. Welcome back. Last time, we explored understanding your inner critic. Now we're going to dive into something incredibly powerful, embodiment.
Embodiment, that's an interesting word, Alex. Most of us associate confidence with our thoughts and what we say. So, how does our body play into that?
That's a great question, Lisa. And it's a fundamental piece of the confidence puzzle. So much of how we feel about ourselves and how others perceive us is communicated through our physical presence. Our body has its own silent language, and learning to speak it fluently can be a game changer for building unshakable self-belief.
So, it's not just about thinking confident thoughts, but actually being confident in our physical selves?
Exactly. Think about it this way. If you're feeling nervous, what does your body often do? You might slouch, avoid eye contact, fidget. All of these outward signals reinforce that internal feeling of nervousness, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. I've definitely found myself doing that. My shoulders hunch up, and I feel like I want to shrink into myself.
And that's the power of embodiment. When we consciously choose to adopt a more confident physical posture and presence, we can actually influence our internal state. It's a two-way street. It's about understanding that your body isn't just a vessel. It's an active participant in how you experience yourself and the world.
That's fascinating. So, what are some of the key elements of this body language of confidence?
Let's break it down. The first, and perhaps most impactful, is posture. When we talk about confidence, we often picture someone standing tall, shoulders back, chest open. This isn't just for show. It physically opens up your body, allowing you to breathe more deeply and feel more expansive. It signals to yourself and others that you are present, grounded, and ready to engage.
Standing tall, so almost like a sense of gentle pride, but without being arrogant?
Precisely. It's a feeling of being grounded and centered within yourself. Imagine yourself as a strong tree with deep roots. That's the kind of presence we're aiming for. Avoid the temptation to slouch, which can make you feel and appear smaller, less significant. Consciously drawing your shoulders back and lifting your head can make an immediate difference.
Okay, posture is a big one. What else?
Next, let's talk about eye contact. This is crucial for connection and trust. When you maintain appropriate eye contact, you convey that you are engaged, attentive, and honest. It shows that you're not afraid to be seen and that you're genuinely interested in the person you're speaking with.
I know I sometimes struggle with eye contact, especially in new situations. It can feel a bit intense.
It can, and it's a skill that's developed. The key is not to stare intensely, but to make natural, comfortable eye contact. Think of it as a gentle connection. You can hold eye contact for a few seconds, then briefly look away, perhaps to the side or down, and then reestablish it. This natural rhythm is far more comfortable for both parties than a sustained, unblinking gaze. It shows you're present and paying attention.
So, a comfortable back and forth, rather than a spotlight. That makes sense.
Exactly. Now, let's consider our gestures. Our hand can say a lot. When we're confident, our gestures tend to be more open and deliberate. Think about using your hands to emphasize a point, to illustrate an idea. This can make your communication more dynamic and engaging.
I've noticed people who are very expressive with their hands when they speak. Is that what you mean?
Yes, but it's about finding a balance. Excessive, frantic gesturing can sometimes signal nervousness. The goal is to use your hands in a way that supports your message, making it clearer and more impactful. Open palms, for instance, are often interpreted as honest and welcoming. Conversely, pointing with a finger can sometimes feel aggressive. So, being mindful of the size and nature of your gestures is important.
It sounds like we're talking about being very conscious of our physical presence, almost like learning a new skill set.
That's precisely what it is. And like any new skill, it takes practice. You can start by simply noticing your own body language. How do you hold yourself when you're feeling confident? How do you hold yourself when you're feeling unsure? Try to recall specific instances and what your physical posture was like.
That's a good exercise. I can picture myself in different scenarios and think about how my body was reacting.
And then you can start to consciously practice the confident behaviors. Before an important meeting, or even just before an everyday interaction, take a moment to adjust your posture. Stand tall, take a deep breath, and make a conscious effort to maintain good eye contact. These small shifts can have a significant ripple effect on how you feel and how you project yourself.
So, it's like giving your brain a signal. I feel confident, and here's the physical evidence to prove it.
You've nailed it, Lisa. It's a feedback loop. When you act confident, you start to feel more confident. This is the power of embodiment. It connects your inner state with your outward expression, creating a synergy that bolsters your self-belief. Remember, your body is constantly communicating. Learning to speak its language of confidence is a powerful tool for building unshakable self-belief. We've discussed the importance of posture, eye contact, and gestures in projecting this confidence, and how conscious practice can transform your internal experience.
To sum up, embodying confidence means consciously adopting physical cues like standing tall, making appropriate eye contact, and using deliberate gestures to influence how we feel and how others perceive us. It's about aligning our physical presence with our inner strength.
Absolutely. This understanding of our physical presence is the foundation for the next steps we'll take in building our quiet confidence.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks for listening. Welcome back to Quiet Confidence. Last time, we explored the powerful, often unnoticed language of our bodies. Today, we're shifting our focus inward to the stories we tell ourselves. We're tackling reframing the narrative and learning how to shift our mindset.
That's right, Alex. In episode 2, we explored how to decode that persistent inner critic. Now we're building on that foundation. It's not enough to just hear the criticism. We need to learn how to actively change the narrative playing in our heads.
Exactly. Think of a mindset like a movie director of your internal world. Are you directing a drama filled with doubt and worst-case scenarios? Or an inspiring film where challenges are opportunities? Reframing is about consciously choosing the script.
And how do we do that, Alex? It sounds a bit abstract. How do we go from believing something negative about ourselves to suddenly believing something positive?
It's a process, a skill, and it starts with recognizing those negative thought patterns. Remember our talk about the inner critic? Those are the prime targets for reframing. One of the most effective techniques is called cognitive restructuring.
Cognitive restructuring. That sounds like something a therapist might do.
It is, but the core principles are something we can all learn and apply. At its heart, cognitive restructuring is about systematically challenging our negative thoughts and replacing them with more balanced, realistic, and helpful ones. It's not about pretending bad things aren't happening, but about changing how we interpret them.
So, it's about questioning the evidence for our negative thoughts?
Precisely. Imagine you have a thought like, I'm terrible at presentations. I always mess up. Cognitive restructuring would prompt you to ask, is that 100% true? What evidence do I have that I always mess up? Have there been times I prepared well and did okay, or even good?
Ah, I see. So, you're looking for shades of gray instead of just black and white. My brain often jumps to the worst case scenario. If I stumble over a word, my inner voice says, see, you can't even speak properly.
That's a perfect example. When you catch yourself thinking that, you can reframe it. Instead of I can't even speak properly, a reframed thought could be, okay, I stumbled on that word. It happens. I'm still getting my message across, and I can recover from a minor slip-up. It's acknowledging the event without catastrophizing it.
That feels much more manageable. It takes the pressure off being perfect. So, we identify the negative thought, we examine the evidence, and then we create a more balanced thought. What's the next step for reinforcing this new narrative?
That's where positive affirmations come in. Now, some people hear affirmations and picture them as empty wishes. But when done correctly, they are powerful tools for reinforcing new, reframed beliefs.
I've heard affirmations like, I am successful. But if you don't feel successful at all, it can feel fake.
That's a crucial point, Lisa. The most effective affirmations are believable to you. They should resonate with the reframed thoughts you've developed. If your reframed thought is about learning and progress, an affirmation could be, I'm committed to learning from each experience and growing stronger. Or, if you're working on public speaking and your reframed thought is, I am improving with practice, your affirmation could be each speaking opportunity helps me build my confidence and skill.
So, it's not about wishing yourself into a new reality, but about reinforcing the positive progress you're already starting to make.
Exactly. It's like tending to a garden. You can't just wish for flowers to grow. You need to plant the seeds. That's identifying and reframing negative thoughts. Then you water and nourish them with affirmations. Over time, those positive beliefs will bloom. Another concept that ties into this is the idea of self-compassion.
Self compassion. That feels directly opposite to the inner critic, doesn't it?
It does. When we're critical of ourselves, we tend to be harsh and unforgiving. Self compassion means treating yourself with the same kindness, understanding, and support you would offer a good friend. When you make a mistake or face a setback, instead of beating yourself up, you'd say to yourself, this is tough, and it's okay to feel this way. Many people experience similar struggles. I can learn from this and move forward.
This is really powerful. It's about acknowledging the difficulty without adding extra layers of self blame.
Right? And when you practice self-compassion, it becomes much easier to reframe your narrative. You're less likely to get stuck in negative loops because you have a built-in mechanism for gentleness and support. So, to recap, we've talked about identifying those negative thought patterns, using cognitive restructuring to challenge them with evidence, and then reinforcing the new, more balanced thoughts with believable affirmations. We also touched upon self-compassion as a vital partner in this process.
It's like building a new internal dialogue. Instead of a constant stream of criticism, we're consciously cultivating a more supportive and realistic inner voice. This takes practice, doesn't it? It won't happen overnight.
Absolutely not. This is a practice. It's about consistent effort. The more you practice reframing and self-compassion, the more natural it becomes. It's about rewiring those ingrained neural pathways. Remember how we discussed the body's silent language? Our thoughts are also a language, and we have the power to become fluent in a more positive dialect.
So, the takeaway for our listeners today is to become detectives of their own thoughts. Notice the negative ones, question them, and then consciously create a more balanced and kind internal narrative using affirmations and self compassion to water those new seeds of belief.
Precisely. You're the author of your internal story. It's time to start writing a more empowering one.
Fantastic. So, if listeners want to start practicing this today, what's one small step they could take?
Start with one specific negative thought that pops up regularly. Just notice it. Don't try to change it immediately. Just observe it with curiosity. Then ask yourself, is this thought helping me? That's the first brick in the wall of reframing.
Great advice. Notice the thought, question its helpfulness. We've given our listeners a lot to work with today on reframing their narratives and shifting their mindset.
Indeed.
Thanks for joining us on Quiet Confidence. Next episode, The Art of Receiving Feedback, Grace Under Fire.
Welcome back. Last time, we explored reframing your mindset. Today, we're tackling receiving feedback.
Feedback. That word alone can make some people tense up. Hearing critiques can be tough. It's so easy for it to feel like a personal attack, right?
Absolutely, Lisa. And that's precisely why mastering the art of receiving feedback is so crucial for building unshakable self-belief. It's not about avoiding criticism. It's about learning to welcome it as a tool for growth and doing so with grace under fire. Remember from episode 2 how we discussed our inner critic. Sometimes external feedback can make that voice even louder.
That's so true. That inner critic just loves to jump in and say, "See, I told you so." So, how do we handle feedback gracefully, especially when it stings a little?
The first step is a conscious decision to listen differently. Instead of immediately preparing your defense or dismissing the feedback, try to adopt a stance of genuine curiosity. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? This simple shift in intention is powerful. It moves you from a defensive posture to one of openness.
So, it's about approaching it like a student rather than a defendant. That makes sense. What does that actually look like in practice?
Picture this. Someone is giving you feedback, and your initial instinct is to interrupt or explain away their point. Instead, take a breath. Let them finish entirely. Make eye contact and nod to show you're engaged. The goal here is active listening. You're not just waiting for your turn to speak. You're truly trying to understand their perspective.
Active listening. So, not just hearing the words, but understanding the message they're trying to convey. And what if the feedback feels subjective or even a bit unfair?
That's a very common challenge, and it leads us to the next crucial step, separating the message from the messenger and the delivery. Not all feedback is delivered perfectly. Sometimes it might be blunt or even delivered with a less than ideal tone. Your job is to extract the valuable nuggets of information, regardless of how they're presented. Ask yourself, is there any truth in this, even if it's wrapped in a less than perfect package? This is where that reframing from episode 4 really comes into play.
That sounds difficult, especially when emotions are involved. How do you avoid taking it personally?
It's a practice, not a perfect. When you feel that sting of defensiveness, try to remember that feedback is usually about your actions or your work, not your inherent worth as a person. It's information. Think of it like a weather report. If the report says rain is coming, you don't get angry at the meteorologist. You grab an umbrella. The feedback is just information about the conditions.
That's a great analogy, Alex. The weather report is just data, and we can choose how to react to it. So, after actively listening and trying to separate the message, what's next?
Once you've heard the feedback, it's often helpful to ask clarifying questions. This serves two purposes. First, it ensures you've understood correctly. You might say, could you give me an example of what you mean when you say the report was unclear? Second, it shows the feedback giver that you're taking their input seriously, which can further de-escalate any potential tension.
Asking for examples is smart. It moves from a general criticism to a specific point you can actually address. And I imagine it helps you see if the feedback is truly constructive or if it's just someone's opinion without much substance.
Exactly. And this brings us to the idea of discerning feedback. Not all feedback is created equal. Some will be incredibly valuable, pointing out blind spots you'd never see on your own. Other feedback might be based on a misunderstanding or a different set of priorities. Your goal is to learn to filter, to identify the constructive criticism that will actually help you improve.
So, we're not passively accepting everything. We're actively processing it. How do you decide what's worth acting on?
Look for patterns. If multiple people are giving you similar feedback, it's a strong indicator that there's something there to explore. Also, consider the source. Does this person have expertise in the area they're commenting on? Do they have your best interests at heart? Trust your intuition, but temper it with thoughtful consideration. Remember, the ultimate goal is growth, not necessarily agreement with every single comment.
Right. We're not just collecting opinions, we're looking for actionable insights. And what if the feedback is overwhelmingly negative, or it hits on something you're already insecure about?
This is where we revisit the idea of managing our inner dialogue. When you receive tough feedback, it's natural for your inner critic to roar. That's when you need to consciously apply the mindset shifts we discussed. Instead of thinking, I'm terrible at this, I'll never improve, try thinking, this is an area where I can develop. What specifically can I work on? It's about acknowledging the feedback without letting it define your entire self-worth. This is a direct application of practicing conscious self-talk.
So, it's a two-part process, handling the external input and then managing the internal reaction. It sounds like embracing feedback is really about embracing the journey of continuous improvement.
Precisely. It's about seeing feedback not as a judgment, but as a gift. A gift that helps you see yourself more clearly, identify areas for development, and ultimately become more resilient and confident. When you can receive feedback with openness, curiosity, and a commitment to learning, you're building a truly unshakable foundation for your confidence. You're learning to stand firm, even when the winds of criticism blow.
So, to recap, listeners, approach feedback with curiosity, practice active listening, try to separate the message from the delivery, ask clarifying questions to ensure understanding, discern the value of the feedback by looking for patterns and considering the source, and crucially, manage your inner dialogue to avoid letting criticism derail your self-worth. It's about embracing feedback as a tool for growth and resilience.
Exactly. It's a powerful skill that separates those who plateau from those who continue to ascend. Next episode, finding your voice, speaking up powerfully. Welcome back. Last time, we explored the art of receiving feedback with grace. Now we're finding your voice and speaking up powerfully.
That's right, Alex. It's one thing to have confidence in your thoughts, but another to share them effectively. This episode is all about that bridge, making your voice heard clearly and assertively without being aggressive.
Exactly, Lisa. For so long, many of us have been taught to be quiet, to not make waves. But true confidence comes from knowing your worth and being able to express it. So what does it really mean to find your voice?
I see it as aligning your inner thoughts and feelings with your outward expression. It's about communicating your needs, your opinions, and your ideas in a way that's both genuine to you and respectful of others. It's not about being the loudest person in the room, but about being heard.
And remember when we discussed the power of embodiment? This ties in perfectly. When you're grounded, when you're connected to your physical presence, your voice carries that groundedness. Your posture, your breathing, it all supports what you're saying.
That makes so much sense. If I'm hunched over, feeling small, my voice will likely sound small too. But if I stand tall, take a deep breath, and make eye contact, I project more authority and presence, even before I utter a word.
Precisely. So, let's talk practical strategies. One of the biggest hurdles is the fear of conflict or disagreement. Many people believe that speaking up means confrontation, but there's a difference between assertiveness and aggression.
Can you break that down for us? What's the core difference?
Assertiveness is about expressing your rights and needs without infringing on the rights and needs of others. It's a direct, honest, and appropriate way to communicate. Think of it as saying, I feel X about Y, and I need Z. Aggression, on the other hand, is about dominating or expressing your needs at the expense of others. It can involve blaming, threats, or disrespect.
So, assertiveness is a win-win approach, while aggression can lead to everyone feeling like a loser.
You've got it. And a key tool for assertiveness is using I statements. Instead of saying, you always interrupt me, which sounds accusatory, you could say, I feel frustrated when I'm interrupted because I lose my train of thought. The focus is on your experience, not on blaming the other person.
That's a much gentler way to express the same feeling. It invites understanding rather than defensiveness.
Exactly. And it's also about being clear and concise. When you ramble or hedge your bets, you dilute your message. Practice saying what you mean directly, without unnecessary apologies or justifications.
I often find myself apologizing even when I haven't done anything wrong, just to soften my request or opinion. It's like an automatic reflex.
That's a habit many of us share. But think about it. If you're requesting something reasonable or stating a valid opinion, why apologize? It undermines your confidence and the legitimacy of your statement. We need to challenge that impulse.
So, what if I'm in a meeting and I have an idea, but I'm worried it's not good enough, or that someone else has already thought of it?
This goes back to overcoming self-doubt, which we've discussed throughout this series. Remind yourself of your unique perspective. You have knowledge and experiences that no one else does. Your idea might be the spark that leads to a much bigger solution. It's often about contributing your piece to the puzzle.
And it's okay if the idea needs refinement later, right? We don't have to present a perfect, finished product every time.
Absolutely not. The act of contributing is valuable in itself. You can preface your contribution with something like, "This is just a thought, and I'm open to developing it, but I was wondering if we could consider X." This acknowledges that it's a work in progress while still putting your idea on the table.
That's a great way to frame it, Alex. It encourages collaboration rather than demanding immediate acceptance.
Another important aspect is knowing when to speak and when to listen. True confidence isn't just about talking. It's also about strategic silence. Sometimes, letting others speak first gives you valuable information and helps you frame your own contribution more effectively.
So, it's about mindful communication, not just constant output.
Precisely. And when you do speak, make sure your delivery matches your message. Maintain good eye contact, speak at a moderate pace, and use clear articulation. A wavering voice or looking at the floor sends a message of uncertainty, even if your words are confident.
It's that complete package again, our words, our body, our tone, all working together.
Exactly. And let's not forget about setting boundaries. Finding your voice often involves saying no when you need to or requesting that your boundaries be respected. This is not selfish. It's essential for your well-being and for maintaining healthy relationships.
The ability to say no without guilt is a superpower. We touched on boundaries briefly in an earlier episode, and it really is fundamental to expressing our authentic selves.
It absolutely is. So, to recap our discussion on finding your voice, it's about aligning your internal thoughts with your external expression. We achieve this through assertive communication, using I statements, being clear and concise, and overcoming the fear of disagreement. Remember the difference between assertiveness and aggression, and value your unique perspective.
And don't forget the power of mindful listening, strategic silence, and ensuring your nonverbal cues support your message. It's a holistic approach to being heard.
Well said, Lisa. Mastering these skills builds not just confidence in your voice, but confidence in your overall presence and worth.
It's empowering to realize that your voice matters, and you have the tools to make it heard effectively. Thanks for listening.
Welcome back to Quiet Confidence. Last time, we learned about speaking up powerfully. Today, we're talking about owning our mistakes.
That's right, Alex. Making a mistake can really shake us, can it? It often feels like a spotlight is suddenly on us, highlighting our imperfections. The fear of judgment, both from others and ourselves, can be immense.
Absolutely, Lisa. And this fear can lead us to avoid responsibility, to deflect, or even to pretend the mistake never happened. But that avoidance, that fear of imperfection, actually erodes our confidence in the long run. Think about it. If we're constantly trying to hide our missteps, we're living in a state of anxiety, not confidence.
So, instead of burying our mistakes, you're suggesting we embrace them? That sounds counterintuitive for building confidence. My immediate thought is, why would admitting fault make me feel more confident?
It's a fantastic question, and it gets to the heart of what we're discussing. Owning our mistakes isn't about dwelling on failure or announcing to the world, "I'm messed up." It's about taking accountability with grace and using that experience as a springboard for growth. It's about recognizing that mistakes are not the opposite of success, but a crucial part of the journey to success.
Okay, I'm starting to see. So, it's less about the mistake itself and more about our response to the mistake.
Exactly. Let's break down what this owning our mistakes looks like in practice. First, it begins with acknowledging the mistake. This means being honest with ourselves. What happened? What was the outcome? No sugarcoating, no excuses, just a clear-eyed assessment. This is very similar to how we learned to reframe negative thoughts earlier. Instead of letting the thought, "I'm a failure," run wild, we examined it. With mistakes, we examine the event.
So, step one is honest internal assessment. What's next?
Step two is taking responsibility. This means understanding our role in what happened. Even if external factors played a part, what could we have done differently? This isn't about blaming ourselves harshly, but about recognizing our agency and our ability to influence outcomes. It's about saying, "I was part of this, and I will learn from it."
This feels like the hardest part for many people. It's easy to point fingers externally. How do we make taking responsibility feel less like punishment and more like empowerment?
By shifting our perspective, instead of seeing responsibility as a burden, see it as a powerful tool. When you take responsibility, you reclaim your power. You're no longer a victim of circumstance. You're an active participant in your own learning and growth. Think of it like a scientist in a lab. If an experiment doesn't yield the expected result, they don't just throw their hands up and declare a failure. They analyze the variables, understand what went wrong, and refine their approach for the next experiment.
That's a great analogy, Alex. The scientist is focused on learning and improvement. So, after acknowledging and taking responsibility, what's the third key element?
Step three is learning. This is where the real growth happens. What do you learn from this situation? What insights can you gain about yourself, about others, about the process? This might involve asking for feedback. And remember our discussion on receiving feedback gracefully? This is another perfect application of that skill. Ask what could have been done differently and listen with an open mind.
So, we look at the mistake, accept our part in it, and then extract the lessons. It's like mining for gold in a rock slide.
Precisely. And the fourth step, closely tied to learning, is making amends if necessary. If your mistake affected others, a sincere apology and a commitment to making things right can go a long way. This isn't just about smoothing things over. It's about integrity and reinforcing the trust that might have been damaged. It shows maturity and a deep understanding of your impact.
So, to recap for our listeners, owning our mistakes involves four main parts: honest acknowledgement, taking responsibility, extracting lessons, and making amends when needed.
Yes, and the key takeaway is that this process builds resilience. Every time we navigate a mistake with accountability and a learning mindset, we strengthen our inner capacity to handle future challenges. We become more robust, more adaptable, and paradoxically, more confident. Why? Because we prove to ourselves that we can survive and even thrive after stumbling.
It shifts the narrative from "I made a mistake, therefore I am flawed" to "I made a mistake, and I learned and grew from it." That's a fundamentally more empowering belief.
It truly is. It's about embracing imperfection not as a weakness, but as a human trait and a catalyst for progress. When you can face your errors head on, extract valuable lessons, and move forward with the wisdom gained, your confidence isn't built on a shaky foundation of perfection, but on the solid bedrock of resilience and self-awareness.
So, the next time you find yourself reflecting on a misstep, try these steps. Be honest with yourself. Take responsibility without harsh self-blame. Actively seek out the lessons and, if necessary, make things right. This is how mistakes become gateways to growth and how our confidence becomes more robust and true.
And that solidifies your self-belief, making it far less susceptible to the doubts we've been exploring. Next, we'll be cultivating a quiet presence and exploring the power of stillness.
That sounds like a peaceful and powerful journey. Thanks for listening.
Welcome back. Last time, we explored owning your mistakes. Now, we're exploring cultivating a quiet presence, the power of stillness.
It's true, Alex. When we often think of confidence, we picture someone who's loud, who commands a room with their voice or their gestures. But this episode is about the opposite, finding that powerful stillness within.
Exactly, Lisa. It's about developing a presence that doesn't need to be amplified. This isn't about being timid or reserved. It's about a deep, internal sense of calm that naturally draws others in. Think about people you know who have this quiet gravitas. They don't need to shout to be heard. Their very presence has weight.
That's a great way to put it. They exude a sense of control and self-assurance without any outward show. So, how do we cultivate this quiet presence? Where do we even begin?
We begin with stillness and a practice that is fundamental to achieving it. Mindfulness. Mindfulness is simply the practice of paying attention to the present moment without judgment. It's about observing your thoughts, feelings, bodily sensations, and the surrounding environment, all with a gentle awareness.
So, it's not about clearing your mind, which I think is a common misconception. It's more about noticing what's happening in your mind and around you, right?
Precisely. Imagine your mind is like a busy street. Thoughts are like cars, buses, and trucks constantly moving. Mindfulness isn't about stopping all the traffic. It's about stepping onto the sidewalk and observing the traffic flow without getting run over by it. You see the thoughts, but you don't have to engage with every single one.
That analogy makes it much clearer. And how does this connect to our confidence, especially the embodied confidence we discussed in episode 3?
Great question. Remember when we discussed your body speaking its own language, the way you stand, your posture, your expressions? When you're mindful, you become more attuned to these subtle signals. You start to notice, for instance, if you're tensing your shoulders when you feel anxious, or if your breath is shallow when you're stressed. This awareness allows you to consciously relax your body and deepen your breath, which in turn sends calming signals to your brain.
So, by being more aware of our physical state through mindfulness, we can actively influence it to feel more grounded and confident?
Exactly. This connection between mind and body is powerful. When you practice mindfulness, you're essentially training your nervous system to be less reactive. Instead of immediately jumping in a fight, flight, or freeze, you create a small pause. In that pause, you have the choice of how to respond. That choice is where confidence truly resides.
That pause sounds incredibly important. It's the space where we can move from reacting to responding, which feels like a huge shift for confidence.
It is. And this practice of stillness can extend beyond formal meditation. It can be incorporated into everyday activities. For example, when you're walking, try to notice the sensation of your feet on the ground, the air on your skin, the sounds around you. When you're eating, truly taste your food. These small moments of present moment awareness build your capacity for stillness.
So, even simple things like a mindful walk or a mindful meal can contribute to this quiet presence.
Absolutely. It's about bringing intentionality to our experiences. Another powerful technique is focusing on your breath. Your breath is always with you, a constant anchor to the present moment. Simply taking a few slow, deep breaths can calm your nervous system and bring you back to yourself. Try it right now. Take a deep breath in, filling your lungs, and exhale slowly. Notice how that feels.
It does feel centering. It's like a little reset button.
It is. And the more you practice this, the more accessible that sense of calm becomes. This cultivated stillness also affects how others perceive you. When you're not constantly agitated or seeking external validation, you project an inner stability that people find reassuring and trustworthy. Others are naturally drawn to this calm energy.
It's like you become a calm port in a storm for others, which must be a sign of great inner confidence.
It is. And it's a confidence that doesn't rely on being the loudest voice in the room. It's a confidence that comes from knowing yourself, from being comfortable with yourself, even in silence. It's about inhabiting your space with a quiet authority.
So, to recap for our listeners, cultivating a quiet presence involves embracing stillness through practices like mindfulness. This means paying attention to the present moment without judgment, becoming more aware of our mind-body connection, and using that awareness to regulate our responses. Simple everyday practices, like mindful breathing and focusing on sensory experiences, help build this capacity for stillness.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. And by developing this inner stillness, we project a powerful, calm presence that is magnetic and deeply confidence building. It's a kind of confidence that resonates on a deeper level, one that doesn't fade when the applause stops.
This truly is a powerful counterpoint to the idea that confidence always needs to be loud and outward. I'm excited for our listeners to explore this.
Me too. So, to recap this episode's key takeaways, stillness is a source of power. Mindfulness helps us connect with the present moment, and a calm presence radiates authentic confidence. Next episode, the imposter syndrome unmasked. Welcome back. Last time, we explored the power of cultivating a quiet presence. Today, we're tackling a particularly insidious challenge to confidence, imposter syndrome.
That's right, Alex. Imposter syndrome. It's that persistent feeling that you're a fraud, that you don't truly deserve your accomplishments, and that you're just waiting to be found out. It really is a formidable foe.
It truly is. And here's something crucial to understand up front. If you experience imposter syndrome, you are far from alone. In fact, it's incredibly common, especially among high achievers. Think about it. People who are constantly pushing their boundaries, learning new things, and stepping into new roles are exactly the types of people who often feel they aren't good enough.
It sounds so counterintuitive, doesn't it? You'd think success would build confidence, but for many, it actually amplifies these feelings of inadequacy. It's like the more you achieve, the harder you feel you have to work to maintain the illusion.
Precisely. The core of imposter syndrome is this disconnect. On the outside, people see your accomplishments, your successes, your competence. But on the inside, you're convinced it's all a mistake or down a luck, or that you've somehow tricked everyone into believing you're capable. You haven't genuinely internalized your successes.
So, what are the common ways this shows up? I think listeners would benefit from recognizing it in themselves.
Great question, Lisa. One of the most common ways is through overworking. People with imposter syndrome often feel they need to work twice as hard as everyone else to compensate for their perceived lack of ability. They might stay late, take on extra projects, and meticulously prepare for everything. Not because it's necessary, but to ward off the fear of being exposed.
That sounds exhausting. And it's a vicious cycle, isn't it? Because overworking can lead to burnout, which then reinforces the feeling that you can't actually handle the workload.
Exactly. Another manifestation is downplaying achievements. When someone compliments you or acknowledges your success, your go-to response might be to deflect. You might say, "Oh, it was nothing," or "I just got lucky," or "anyone could have done it." You actively push away positive regard because it doesn't fit your internal narrative.
I can definitely see myself doing that. It's like an automatic reflex to say, it wasn't that big of a deal, even when it clearly was.
And then there's the fear of failure. This fear can be paralyzing. It can lead to procrastination, putting off tasks because the thought of not doing them perfectly is too daunting. Or conversely, it can lead to taking on too much in the hope that by being busy with many things, the core fear is somehow masked. It's a complex dance of avoidance and overcompensation.
So, we have overworking, downplaying achievements, and a strong fear of failure. Are there any other key signs we should be aware of?
Yes, a significant one is self-criticism. The inner critic is in overdrive. Every small mistake is amplified into proof of your inadequacy. You're far harsher on yourself than you would ever be on a friend facing the same situation. You might ruminate on past errors, replaying them over and over, convinced they define your capabilities.
That inner critic can be so brutal. It's like having a constant, negative commentator in your head.
Absolutely. And this often leads to a reluctance to seek help or ask questions. Asking for clarification can feel like admitting you don't know something, which, in the imposter's mind, is a sure sign they're about to be discovered. So, they might struggle in silence, which, as we mentioned, usually makes things harder and reinforces the problem.
It's a real trap. The very action someone takes to avoid being found out as a fraud actually contribute to the feelings of being overwhelmed and incapable. Alex, you mentioned earlier that this is a crucial step after reframing our thoughts in episode 4. How does that connection work?
That's a perfect question to bridge our topics. Remember when we discussed how our thoughts shape our reality? We learned to identify negative or unhelpful thought patterns and actively work to reframe them into more balanced and realistic ones. Imposter syndrome is a prime example of a deeply ingrained negative thought pattern.
So, while we're introducing the concept of imposter syndrome today, the tools to combat it are rooted in that earlier discussion on mindset.
Precisely. The first step in dismantling imposter syndrome is simply recognizing it for what it is, a feeling, a thought pattern, not an objective truth about your capabilities. You have to acknowledge that this internal narrative of inadequacy is powerful, but it's not the reality of your competence.
And that external validation, which we often crave, doesn't actually fix it because it doesn't penetrate that internal belief system.
Exactly. You can receive a promotion, a bonus, and lavish praise. But if you have imposter syndrome, you'll often attribute it to external factors rather than your own merit. So, instead of directly seeking more external validation, the real work lies in challenging those internal beliefs.
This brings us to the practical steps for dismantling imposter syndrome. We've identified the problem and how it shows up. What can someone actually do?
The first actionable step is to start collecting evidence. When you notice yourself thinking, I'm not good enough, or I don't know what I'm doing, pause. Actively search for proof that contradicts that thought. What have you accomplished? What skills have you used successfully? What challenges have you overcome? Write these down.
So, keep a confidence journal, essentially, a place to document your successes and the skills that led to them.
That's a fantastic way to put it. Keep a proof journal. Make it tangible. And then practice reappraising those critical thoughts. When the inner critic says, that was a fluke, you counter it with, no, that was the result of hard work and applying my skills in specific ways. It's like a mental debate where you actively present the evidence against the imposter's claims.
It's about building a counterargument to that internal voice of self-doubt. I like that.
Yes, and another powerful strategy is to talk about it. Sharing your feelings with trusted friends, mentors, or colleagues can be incredibly liberating. You'll often find that others have experienced similar feelings, which helps to normalize the experience and reduce the shame associated with it.
That's a great point. It's hard to feel like a lonely, inadequate fraud when you discover you're in very good company.
Indeed. And finally, celebrate your successes, no matter how small. Don't just rush on to the next task. Take a moment to acknowledge what you've done. Give yourself credit. This is about internally acknowledging your contributions, which is the direct antidote to downplaying your achievements.
So, to recap what we've discussed today, imposter syndrome is that persistent feeling of being a fraud common among high achievers. It manifests as overworking, downplaying achievements, fear of failure, harsh self-criticism, and reluctance to ask for help. The key to combating it, Building on our earlier mindset work is to recognize it as a feeling, not a fact.
And the practical steps involve keeping a proof journal to collect evidence of your competence, actively reappraising critical thoughts with that evidence, talking about your feelings to normalize them, and consciously celebrating your successes. By doing these things, we begin to dismantle the imposter's narrative and build a more authentic sense of confidence.
It's a process, but a vital one for anyone looking to build true, unshakable self belief.
Next episode, micro habits for macro confidence. Welcome back. Last time we unmasked the imposter syndrome. Today we're exploring micro habits, those small, consistent actions that lead to big impact.
Micro habits. I love this topic. It's like finding a secret cheat code to building confidence without feeling overwhelmed. Alex, many listeners might have felt a little intimidated by imposter syndrome, so this idea of small steps feels incredibly welcome.
Exactly, Lisa. We often think massive changes require massive effort, but that's rarely the case. Think about building a giant wall. You don't just magically make the whole wall appear. You place one brick at a time. Micro habits are those individual bricks for building unshakable self-belief.
So, these aren't just tiny to-do items. They're specifically designed to build confidence. How does that work?
Great question. A micro habit is a behavior so small, it's almost impossible not to do. We're talking about actions that take less than 2 minutes. The key is that it's designed to be the start of a larger, desired behavior. It's the seed that grows. For instance, instead of saying, I will meditate for 30 minutes, a micro habit could be, I will take 3 deep breaths.
Okay, that makes sense. 3 deep breaths are definitely doable. So, it's about getting over that initial hurdle of starting?
Precisely. Remember when we discussed embodiment earlier in our series? How our physical state influences our mental state. Taking 3 deep breaths immediately shifts your physiology. It's a tiny act of self-care that signals to your brain, I am capable of doing this. It's like a gentle nudge towards taking control.
And how does this connect to our mindset discussions?
It ties in beautifully. When you successfully complete a micro habit, you get a rush, that little burst of pleasure and reward in your brain. This creates a positive feedback loop. You start associating that small action with a positive feeling. Over time, these small successes rewire your brain to believe you're capable of achieving more. You're literally practicing confidence one tiny action at a time.
So, it's not just about completing the task, it's about the feeling of accomplishment that comes with it, no matter how small.
Absolutely. The beauty of micro habits is they bypass our inner critic. Imposter syndrome often whispers, you can't do this, it's too hard. But when a task is put on your running shoes, the critic is largely silent. Once the shoes are on, you're already halfway to your walk or run. You've overcome the biggest obstacle, inertia.
That's so smart. It's like tricking yourself into success. And what kind of things can we consider micro habits for building confidence?
There are so many. Let's brainstorm a few. For building a positive mindset, a micro habit could be write down one thing I'm grateful for, or say one positive affirmation of myself in the mirror. For physical well-being, which we know impacts confidence, it could be drink one glass of water first thing in the morning, or do one push-up.
Oh, I like the drink 1 glass of water. It's so simple, but it's a concrete act of taking care of yourself.
Exactly. Another category could be learning and growth. Maybe it's read one paragraph of an inspiring book or listen to 1 minute of an educational podcast. The idea is to create momentum. These small actions are designed to be anchors, linking to more significant behaviors that we aspire to.
So you start with a tiny habit and then you organically build on it? It's not about forcing yourself to do more than you're ready for.
That's the golden rule. You want to make it so easy that you can't say no. And if you miss a day, it's not a failure. You just get back on track the next day. There's no guilt, no shame. That builds resilience and a more robust sense of self-belief than trying to do too much too soon and then feeling like you failed.
This is such a powerful approach. It feels so much more achievable than trying to overhaul your entire life overnight. It's about consistency over intensity.
Precisely. And research shows that consistency is what truly drives lasting change. When you consistently perform these small actions, you start to see yourself as someone who does these things. I'm someone who drinks water first thing. I am someone who takes care of my body. These identity shifts are the bedrock of unshakable confidence.
It's like building a new identity, brick by brick. So, to recap, micro habits are tiny actions under 2 minutes designed to be the start of a larger behavior. They trigger positive feedback loops, bypass our inner critic, and help us build a new identity based on our consistent actions.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. And remember, the goal isn't necessarily to do the larger behavior every time. It's to make the start so effortless that doing it becomes automatic. The motivation to continue will often follow naturally. If you put on your running shoes, you might just decide to go for that walk. If you've taken 3 deep breaths, you might feel ready to meditate for a few minutes.
It's about creating the fertile ground for confidence to grow. We've talked about embodiment and mindset previously, and these micro habits are the practical application of those concepts in our daily lives. They are the small, consistent actions that lead to those macro gains in self-belief.
Exactly. By embedding these tiny habits into our routines, we're not just changing our actions, we're changing our underlying beliefs about ourselves. We're proving to ourselves, day after day, that we are capable, we are disciplined, and we are worthy of our goals.
It's a beautiful, gentle, yet profoundly effective way to build that quiet confidence we've been discussing.
Indeed. Next, we'll explore breaking free from external validation. Welcome back. Last time, we explored how tiny, consistent actions can lead to massive boosts in your confidence. Today, we're tackling a really common challenge that holds so many of us back: the constant need for external validation.
That's right, Alex. It's that feeling where we're constantly looking to others for approval, for that nod of agreement, or that compliment that says, "You're doing okay." It's like our self-worth is on a dimmer switch controlled by other people's opinions.
Exactly. And it's exhausting, isn't it? Imagine your confidence being a sail, and every gust of praise fills it up, but any hint of criticism or indifference makes it sag. You're constantly at the mercy of the external weather.
It can make us hesitant too. We might not speak up in a meeting, or we might shy away from a new opportunity because we're worried about what others will think. We're predicting negative feedback before anything even happens.
And that prediction often becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you're so focused on what others might think, your action itself can become hesitant or less impactful. We're essentially outsourcing our sense of self-worth. But the good news is we can learn to break free from this. Today, we'll discuss how to build that inner validation, that rock-solid internal foundation we talked about.
So, how do we start detaching our self-worth from what other people think? It sounds like a huge undertaking.
It can feel that way, but it starts with awareness and then applying some practical strategies. First, let's revisit something we touched on in episode 4, reframing your mindset. Remember how we talked about shifting your perspective from what could go wrong to what could go right? We can apply that here. Instead of thinking, what will they think of me if I do this? Try asking, what will happen if I do this for myself, regardless of their opinion?
Okay, So, shifting the focus from external judgment to internal intention. That makes sense. Instead of asking for permission from the outside world, we're giving ourselves the green light from within.
Precisely. And this is closely linked to owning our mistakes, which we covered in episode 7. When you're not afraid of criticism because you've learned to see mistakes as learning opportunities, the opinions of others lose some of their power. If you mess up and you've already accepted that messing up is part of growth, then someone else pointing it out doesn't sting as much.
That's a great connection. Owning mistakes takes away the fear of having them exposed, and that reduces the reliance on others to cover for us or to validate that we're perfect.
Exactly. So, strategy number 1, mindful self-awareness. Start paying attention to when you're seeking external approval. What situations trigger it? What thoughts run through your head? Is a specific person, a work environment, or social media? Just noticing is the first step to changing it.
I can already see how just recognizing that pattern would interrupt it, like catching yourself before you unconsciously check for likes on a social media post.
You've got it. Strategy number 2, cultivate your inner voice. This is about learning to trust your own judgment and intuition. When you have a decision to make or an idea you want to pursue, tune into your own thoughts and feelings first. What do you believe is the right path? What resonates with your values?
So, before I ask my friend, my partner, or even search online for what others think, I should really sit with myself and ask, what does Alex think or feel about this?
Yes, and this takes practice. Sometimes our inner voice can be quieted by years of seeking outward cues. Meditation and mindfulness practices, like those we discussed in episode 8, can be fantastic for helping you connect with and strengthen that inner compass. A quiet mind is a better listener to its own wisdom.
That makes so much sense. The quieter we are internally, the more clearly we can hear ourselves. What's the next step?
Strategy number 3, define your own metrics for success. So often, we adopt external metrics. Success is measured by promotions, by how much money we make, by how many followers we have. While those things can be nice, if they're the only things you measure yourself against, and they depend on others' opinions, you'll always feel shaky. Instead, create your own internal scorecard.
What kind of internal scorecard are we talking about?
It could be about personal growth, learning a new skill, showing kindness, or simply showing up authentically. For example, maybe your metric for success in a presentation isn't getting a standing ovation, but rather clearly communicating your message and feeling like you did your best. Or maybe success in a project is defined by learning one new thing, regardless of the final outcome.
So, it's about setting goals that are within your own control and aligned with your personal values, rather than those that are dependent on external forces. That feels much more empowering.
Absolutely. And this leads us to strategy number 4, practice self-compassion. When you inevitably slip up and find yourself seeking validation, don't beat yourself up about it. That's just another form of seeking external validation, proving to yourself that you shouldn't be seeking external validation. Instead, treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a friend.
Oh, that's a good point. It's easy to fall into a cycle of self-criticism. I can't believe I just did that again. And that itself is another external judgment, even if it's from ourselves.
Exactly. So, when you notice yourself relying too much on others' opinions, just acknowledge it gently. Okay, I'm feeling that pull towards needing approval. That's understandable. Then, gently guide yourself back to your internal metrics or your inner voice.
So, to recap, the key strategies for breaking free from external validation are: number 1, practice mindful self-awareness to catch the habit. Number 2, cultivate your inner voice and trust your intuition. Number 3, define your own personal metrics for success. And number 4, practice self-compassion when you stumble.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. This process isn't about becoming arrogant or not caring about others' feedback at all. It's about building a resilient sense of self-worth that isn't constantly swayed by the winds of approval or disapproval from the outside. It's about building a confidence that comes from within a confidence that's truly unshakable.
And that inner foundation is what allows us to be more authentic and to really connect with others on a deeper level because we're not performing for them. We're just being ourselves.
Precisely. It's the core of having quiet confidence. Happy learning. Welcome back. Last time, we explored how to break free from the constant need for external validation. Now, we're diving into something truly foundational, embracing your authentic self.
Yes, Alex. It feels like we've been building towards this all series. We've learned about our inner critic, how to use our bodies to feel more confident, how to reframe our thoughts, and even how to handle feedback and mistakes. But if we don't truly embrace who we are, deep down, how solid can that confidence really be?
Exactly, Lisa. Think of it this way. All those skills we've developed, managing self-doubt, speaking up, handling setbacks, they're like the tools in a toolbox. Embracing your authentic self is like knowing exactly which tool to use, and with confidence, because you trust your own judgment and know your own capabilities. It's not about putting on a show. It's about showing up as you are.
So, is embracing our authentic self simply about accepting ourselves, flaws and all? I know we've touched on self acceptance before, but how does this connect specifically to confidence?
It's definitely a huge part of it. Self-acceptance means acknowledging all aspects of yourself, the strengths, the weaknesses, the quirks, the past experiences, without harsh judgment. When you stop fighting against who you are, you free up so much energy. And that energy can then be channeled into action, into pursuing your goals, into simply being present and engaged in life. This acceptance forms the bedrock. Imagine a building. If the foundation is shaky, the whole structure is at risk. Self-acceptance is that strong, unwavering foundation.
That makes so much sense. So, instead of trying to project an image of someone we think we should be, we're focusing on being comfortable with who we actually are. How does that translate into practical confidence, especially in situations where we might feel challenged?
Great question. When you embrace your authentic self, you're less afraid of being found out. This is especially true for the imposter syndrome we discussed earlier. If you truly accept that you are inherently worthy and that your journey is unique, then you don't feel the need to pretend. In challenging situations, this authenticity provides a compass. You can make decisions that align with your values and your true desires, rather than trying to please others or meet some external expectation. Your confidence comes from integrity, being true to yourself.
I remember when we talked about breaking free from external validation. This feels like the natural next step, doesn't it? Authenticity means your internal compass is the primary guide.
Precisely. External validation is like a temporary patch. Embracing your authentic self is like rebuilding the entire structure of your confidence from the inside out. And remember how we talked about the power of presence? Being authentically you allows you to be fully present in whatever you're doing. You're not distracted by worrying about how you're perceived or trying to maintain a facade. You're just there, fully engaged, and that presence itself is incredibly powerful and builds confidence.
So it's about owning our unique perspective and experiences. It's about realizing that our individuality isn't something to hide, but a source of strength. This ties into speaking up powerfully, too, doesn't it? When you're authentic, your words carry more weight because they come from a genuine place.
Absolutely. When you speak your truth, not aggressively, but with conviction that comes from self-acceptance, people listen. It's not about being loud. It's about being clear and genuine. And this extends to all our interactions. Being authentic in relationships means you can set healthy boundaries because you know what you need and you're not afraid to express it. You're not trying to be someone you're not to keep people around.
This is so empowering. It sounds like embracing your authentic self is the ultimate antidote to much of the self-doubt and insecurity we've explored. It's not about perfection, but about genuine self-connection.
Exactly. It's a continuous process, of course. There will be days when it feels harder than others. But the foundation of knowing and accepting yourself deeply is what allows you to navigate those challenges. It's the core of quiet confidence, a confidence that doesn't need to shout because it's inherently solid and sure. It's about recognizing that your unique way of being is not just valid, but valuable.
So, to recap for our listeners, embracing your authentic self means 1. Practicing deep self-acceptance, flaws and all. 2. Using your internal compass for decisions rather than seeking constant external approval. 3. Being fully present and engaged because you're not distracted by pretense. And 4. Allowing your genuine voice and values to guide your actions and interactions. This is truly the heart of unshakable confidence.
Beautifully summarized, Lisa. This episode has been about integrating everything we've learned. When you embrace your authentic self, all those skills, managing your inner critic, understanding your body language, reframing thoughts, speaking up, weathering mistakes, and building resilience, they all come together. They become expressions of who you truly are, leading to a deep, quiet, and enduring confidence. Next up, confidence in relationships, setting healthy boundaries. Welcome back. Last time, we explored the profound freedom of embracing your authentic self. Now, we're diving deep into a crucial element of sustained self-belief, resilience in action. We'll be looking at how to navigate setbacks and truly learn from adversity.
That's right, Alex. Authenticity is wonderful, but life inevitably throws curveballs. So we're focusing on how to not just survive those challenging moments, but to actually use them as fuel for growth. Think of it as building your inner bounce back muscle.
Exactly. And to build that muscle, we need to understand what resilience actually is. It's not about never falling down. It's about how quickly and effectively you get back up. It's the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. It's that inner strength that allows us to face adversity, trauma, and tragedy or significant sources of stress.
So it's more of an active process than a fixed trait. You can develop it. And it sounds like it has a lot to do with our mindset. I remember when we talked about reframing the narrative. How does that connect here?
It connects profoundly, Lisa. When we face a setback, maybe a project at work doesn't go as planned or a personal goal is missed, our initial reaction is often negative. We might feel disappointment, frustration, or even like a failure. Reframing involves consciously shifting that initial negative interpretation into something more constructive. Instead of thinking, I failed, we can ask, what did I learn from this?
So you're taking that initial sting and finding the lesson within it. That's such a powerful way to turn a negative event into a positive learning opportunity. It's like looking at a puzzle piece that doesn't quite fit and instead of discarding it, examining it to see where it could fit or what you learned about the shape of the puzzle by trying.
That's a fantastic analogy, Lisa. And this ties directly into our earlier discussion about owning our mistakes. Owning a mistake isn't dwelling on it. It's acknowledging it, understanding its impact, and then extracting the valuable insights. It's a foundational step for resilience. Without owning our missteps, we can't truly learn from them and build the wisdom to avoid repeating them or to handle similar situations better in the future.
I remember that. Owning our mistakes felt so empowering rather than shameful. And the idea of resilience seems to be the natural evolution of that, taking that ownership and turning it into forward momentum. So, what are some practical strategies for actually doing this when we're in the thick of a setback?
One of the most effective strategies is cultivating a sense of self-compassion. When things go wrong, we're often our own harshest critics. We tell ourselves things we would never say to a friend. Self-compassion means treating yourself with the same kindness, concern, and support you'd give to a good friend who is suffering.
That makes so much sense. If we're beating ourselves up, we're draining our energy and making it harder to find the strength to bounce back. So, instead of the internal voice saying, "You idiot, how could you do that?" It's more like, "This is really tough right now. It's okay to feel this way. What's one small step I can take to feel a little better or to move forward?"
Precisely. And beyond self-compassion, another key strategy is focusing on what you can control. In any setback, there are usually elements that are beyond your influence and elements that are within your power to change. Focusing your energy on the latter is far more productive and empowering.
Right. You can't change what happened yesterday, but you can decide how to react to it today and what actions to take going forward. It's about shifting from a victim mentality to an empowered one.
Exactly. And this leads us to another crucial aspect, learning to adapt. Resilience isn't about rigidly sticking to a plan that's no longer working. It's about being flexible, open to new approaches, and willing to adjust your course when necessary. Think of a river flowing around obstacles. It doesn't stop, it finds a new path.
I love that river metaphor. It's about flow and adaptability. And while we're talking about adapting, it's also important to remember the value of our support systems. When we feel overwhelmed, reaching out to trusted friends, family, or mentors can be incredibly beneficial. They can offer perspective, encouragement, and practical help.
Absolutely. We are not meant to navigate life's challenges entirely alone. Sharing our struggles can lighten the load and remind us that we're not isolated in our experiences. Remember our discussion on confidence in relationships? This is where those strong connections truly shine and support our resilience.
So, to recap, building resilience involves shifting our mindset through reframing, owning our mistakes, practicing self compassion, focusing on what we can control, adapting to changing circumstances, and leaning on our support systems. That's a powerful toolkit for navigating those inevitable bumps in the road.
It truly is. Resilience isn't a once-and-done fix. It's an ongoing practice. Each setback we navigate successfully builds our capacity for the next challenge. And by applying these strategies, we not only recover, but we often emerge stronger, wiser, and with a deeper, more unshakable sense of confidence.
It's that quiet confidence that allows us to face the unknown with a sense of capable anticipation rather than dread. Even if things don't go according to plan, we know we have the internal resources to handle it.
And that, listeners, is the essence of resilience in action. It's the quiet strength that underpins true self-belief. Thanks for listening. Welcome back to Quiet Confidence. Last time, we talked about building resilience, that amazing ability to bounce back when life throws us a curveball. Today, we're diving into something deeply connected to that, the power of presence. This is all about being fully engaged, right here, right now.
That's such a great segue, Alex. Resilience is so much easier when you're not constantly lost in worry about the past or stressing about the future. Being present feels like the anchor that keeps you steady.
Exactly, Lisa. And it's a fundamental building block for quiet confidence. Think about it. When you're truly present, you're more aware of yourself and your surroundings. You can respond thoughtfully instead of just reacting. This ties back to what we discussed in episode 3 about the power of embodiment, knowing what your body is telling you. When you're present, you're tuning into those messages.
So, presence isn't just about sitting still and meditating, though that can be part of it. It's about actively engaging with whatever is happening.
Precisely. It's about bringing your full attention to your tasks, your conversations, even just to your own experience of an ordinary moment. Many people struggle with this because our minds are so easily pulled in different directions. We're thinking about our to-do list while someone is talking to us, or replaying an awkward conversation from yesterday. It's like trying to watch a movie on a screen filled with pop-up ads.
That's a perfect analogy. So, how do we start to clear those pop-up ads and actually focus?
The key is mindfulness. And when we talk about mindfulness, we're not talking about some mystical Eastern practice, though many traditions have cultivated it beautifully. At its core, mindfulness is simply the practice of paying attention, on purpose, to the present moment, without judgment. It's about acknowledging what's happening, both internally and externally, with curiosity.
Without judgment. That's the tricky part, isn't it? Our inner critic loves to jump in and tell us we're not doing it right, or that we should be doing something else. The critic we explored back in episode 2.
Absolutely. And that's where practice comes in. One of the simplest ways to cultivate presence is through the breath. Your breath is always happening right now. It's a constant, natural rhythm. When your mind starts to wander, and it will, that's what minds do, you can gently guide your attention back to the sensation of your breath. Inhaling, exhaling.
So, it's like a gentle reminder to come back home to yourself.
Exactly. Another powerful technique is mindful observation. This means intentionally noticing the details of our experiences. If you're eating, really taste the food. Notice its texture, its temperature, the flavors. If you're walking, feel your feet on the ground. Notice the sights and sounds around you. It's about engaging your senses fully. This also helps us get out of our heads and into our bodies, reinforcing that embodiment we talked about earlier.
I can see how that would shift your perspective. Instead of just rushing through a meal, you're actually experiencing it. And that experience, when you're fully present, is often much richer and more satisfying.
And it's not just about personal enjoyment. This practice of presence deeply impacts how we connect with others. When you're truly present in a conversation, you're not just waiting for your turn to speak. You're actively listening. You're picking up on nonverbal cues. You're showing the other person that they have your undivided attention. This is how we build genuine connection and trust.
And that directly leads into episode 15 about communication for confidence. Being present makes you a better communicator because you're truly hearing and seeing the other person. It's about clarity and connection, as we'll explore more.
You've got it. When you're present, you're less likely to misunderstand things, less likely to react defensively. You can pause, take it in, and respond with more thought and less emotion. This cultivates that sense of calm authority we touched on in episode 8 about cultivating a quiet presence through stillness. Presence amplifies that stillness.
So, to recap, for those of us trying to build this power of presence, we're focusing on mindfulness, which is paying attention on purpose, without judgment. We can use our breath as an anchor, and we can actively engage our senses to observe our experiences more deeply.
That's right. And the benefits ripple outwards. When you're present, you're more effective in your work because you're less distracted. You're more engaged in your relationships because you're truly connecting. And ultimately, you're more grounded in yourself, which is the bedrock of unshakable confidence. It helps us embrace who we are, our authentic self, as we discussed in episode 12.
It's like your confidence becomes less about what you achieve and more about how you show up in the world.
Beautifully put, Lisa. It's about being fully engaged in the unfolding of your life, moment by moment. This practice of presence is a continuous journey, not a destination. There will be days when your mind feels like a runaway train, and that's okay. The practice is in noticing that and gently redirecting your attention. It's about progress, not perfection. This is key to the long game of sustaining our confidence, which we'll cover in episode 17.
So, the takeaway for today is that by consciously choosing to be present, to engage our minds and senses fully in the here and now, we build a stronger foundation for resilience, better communication, and ultimately, a deeper, more unshakable, quiet confidence.
Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time we covered finding your voice. Now let's tackle communication for confidence, focusing on clarity and connection.
That's right, Alex. It's one thing to have something to say, but it's another to say it in a way that truly connects with others, and that leaves you feeling more confident, not less.
Exactly. We've touched on embodied presence and stillness in previous discussions, and that grounded feeling is the perfect foundation for confident communication. It helps us avoid speaking reactively or defensively. When you feel centered, you can choose your words more mindfully.
So, it's about bringing that inner calm to our outward expression?
Precisely. And a huge part of that is active listening. True confidence isn't just about speaking. It's about engaging fully when others speak. When you truly listen, you're not just waiting for your turn to talk. You're absorbing, understanding, and considering what the other person is saying.
That makes sense. So often, in conversations, we're already formulating our response before the other person has even finished speaking. That's not really listening, is it?
Not at all. Active listening involves paying full attention, nodding, making eye contact, and offering verbal cues like, I see, or this is what I'm hearing. It's about showing the speaker, I value what you're saying. This not only helps you understand them better, but also makes them feel heard and respected, which builds a stronger connection.
And feeling that connection can boost our own confidence, can it? When we make others feel good, it often reflects back on us.
Absolutely. Another key is clarity. When you communicate clearly, you reduce misunderstandings. This means getting straight to the point, using language that everyone can understand, and avoiding jargon unless you're certain your audience is familiar with it. Think of it like giving directions. The clearer you are, the less likely someone is to get lost.
I like that analogy. So, instead of rambling or being overly complicated, we aim for conciseness?
Yes, conciseness is powerful. It shows you respect both your time and the other person's time. It also demonstrates that you've thought through what you want to say. So, before you speak, take a moment to ask yourself, what is the most important point I need to convey?
That's a great internal check. It helps filter out unnecessary distractions.
And as we discussed previously about owning your mistakes, communication also involves taking responsibility for what you say. If you make an error in your communication, or if something you said was misunderstood, owning it with clarity and an apology, if needed, is a sign of strength, not weakness.
It's that grounded demeanor you mentioned earlier. It allows for a graceful way to correct course.
Exactly. And then there's empathy, understanding, and sharing the feelings of another. This doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but it means acknowledging their perspective. Phrases like, I can understand why you might feel that way, or it sounds like you're going through a difficult time, can create an instant bridge.
That's so important for building rapport. It moves the conversation from just exchanging information to a more human connection.
And when we talk about connection, it's also about being authentic. We've discussed embracing your authentic self earlier. Your communication style should reflect who you are. Don't try to be someone you're not. Confidence shines through when your words align with your true self.
So, to recap what we've covered today, confident communication involves a blend of active listening, clarity, conciseness, taking responsibility, and empathy, all rooted in that grounded, embodied presence we've explored throughout our discussions.
That's a fantastic summary, Lisa. When you focus on truly hearing others, expressing yourself with precision, and doing so with genuine care, you not only foster stronger connections, but you also build a deeper, more unshakable sense of your own confidence. It's about making every interaction a positive step forward. Next episode, confidence in relationships, setting healthy boundaries. Welcome back. Last time we covered communicating with clarity and connection. Now let's tackle how confidence impacts our relationships.
That's such a crucial part of confidence, Alex. We've spent so much time talking about building internal belief, but how we show up with others really tests that. Clear communication, which we just discussed, is going to be key here.
Absolutely. Think about it this way. If you've been fostering your inner confidence, learning to speak your mind, and own your worth, what happens when you're around people who tend to take over or perhaps don't respect your time or energy?
Right. It can feel like a real drain, and it starts to chip away at that confidence we've been working so hard to build. It's like trying to fill a leaky bucket.
Exactly. And that's where setting healthy boundaries comes in. Boundaries aren't walls to keep people out. They're more like clear signals that say, this is what I need to feel respected and safe in this interaction. They define what is and isn't okay for you.
So, it's not about being demanding or rigid, but about communicating your needs and limits clearly and respectfully.
Precisely. And this builds directly on our earlier discussions. Remember when we talked about finding your voice? Setting boundaries is a practical application of that. It's about using your voice to advocate for yourself within your relationships. It also ties into clear communication, which we explored previously.
It makes total sense. So, what are some common examples of boundaries people might need to set?
Well, they can fall into a few categories. There are physical boundaries like needing personal space. Then there are emotional boundaries, where you protect your feelings and don't take on others' emotional burdens. Time boundaries are also vital, knowing when to say no to requests that might overextend you. And intellectual boundaries, where you don't feel obligated to agree with everyone or debate every point.
I can see how easy it is for those to get blurred, especially with people we care about. We want to be helpful and agreeable.
We do, and that's a positive trait. But unchecked agreeableness can lead to resentment. When you consistently say yes to things you don't have the time or energy for, or when you let others dictate your emotional state, you're sacrificing your own well-being. Healthy boundaries protect that well-being, allowing you to be present and engaged in relationships without feeling depleted.
How do we actually start setting these boundaries without it feeling confrontational?
The key is to be clear and direct, but also kind. Instead of saying, you always overstep, you can say, I need some quiet time to recharge this evening. Can we catch up tomorrow? Or if someone is constantly sharing difficult personal issues and it's weighing on you, you could say, I care about what you're going through, but I don't have the emotional capacity to discuss this further right now.
That sounds much more manageable. It's about stating your reality rather than accusing the other person.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that not everyone will immediately understand or accept your boundaries. Some people might push back. This is where your inner confidence truly comes into play. You have to trust your right to set those limits and be prepared to gently reiterate them.
So, if someone doesn't respect a boundary, what's the next step?
You might need to be firmer. This could involve stepping away from the conversation or even limiting contact if the boundary is repeatedly violated. It's not about punishment, but about protecting yourself. Remember, a boundary is a limit you set for your own protection and well-being. If it's constantly ignored, it's no longer serving its purpose.
This also speaks to the idea of authentic relationships, which we touched on when discussing embracing your true self. When you set boundaries, you're showing up as your authentic self, and you're inviting others to do the same, or at least to respect your authentic self.
That's a beautiful way to put it, Lisa. Authentic relationships are built on mutual respect, and boundaries are a fundamental part of that respect. They allow for honest connection. When you're not constantly stressed about overextending yourself or being drained, you have more genuine energy to give to the people and activities you truly value.
It feels like practicing boundaries is a continuous process, not a one and done thing.
It absolutely is. As your life changes, your needs and limits might change too, and that's perfectly normal. Regularly checking in with yourself about how you're feeling in your relationships can help you identify when a boundary needs adjustment or reinforcement. Ask yourself, am I feeling resentful? Am I feeling consistently drained after interacting with this person? If the answer is yes, it might be time to revisit your boundaries.
So, to recap for our listeners, setting healthy boundaries in relationships isn't about building walls, but about clear, respectful communication of your needs and limits. This protects your emotional well being, strengthens your internal confidence, and allows for more authentic connections. It builds on our previous discussions about finding your voice and communicating clearly.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. Remember, your confidence is a self-sustaining force when you protect it. Setting boundaries is a powerful way to do just that, ensuring your relationships nourish you rather than deplete you. Next episode, the long game, sustaining your confidence. Welcome back to Quiet Confidence. Today we're talking about something crucial, the long game of sustaining your confidence.
Sustaining. That implies it's not a one-time fix, right? Like, once you're confident, you're done. That sounds exhausting to maintain, Alex.
Exactly, Lisa. True confidence isn't a destination. It's a continuous practice, a way of living. We've spent the last 16 episodes building this amazing foundation for unshakable self-belief. Now, how do we keep that foundation strong for years to come?
So it's about making it a habit, not just a phase. What's the first step in that long game?
The first step is continued self-awareness. Remember when we talked about decoding your inner critic? That skill doesn't just disappear. You have to keep checking in with yourself. Are those old doubts creeping back in? Are there new challenges triggering old insecurities?
So it's like regular maintenance for your mindset. You can't just set it and forget it and expect it to go on forever. You have to keep checking the oil, so to speak.
That's a brilliant analogy, Lisa. Think of it like physical fitness. You go to the gym, you get strong, but you have to keep going to stay strong. Self-awareness is your regular checkup. It's noticing when you're starting to feel that familiar knot of anxiety before a big presentation, or when you catch yourself downplaying your achievements.
And when you notice those things, what do? Just notice them?
Noticing is the start, but then you act. This is where adaptability comes in. Life is constantly changing. New jobs, new relationships, new challenges. If your confidence is rigid, it will break. You need to be able to adapt your strategies, your mindset, to new circumstances.
So if I'm used to being confident in a certain role and then my role changes, I can't just expect the old confidence to automatically apply. I need to adjust.
Precisely. And this adaptability is fueled by embracing ongoing personal growth. We touched on this, about embracing your authentic self. That journey doesn't end. You're always learning, always evolving. The more you commit to growth, the more resilient your confidence becomes.
That makes sense. Because if you're growing, you're not as afraid of things that are new or different. You see them as opportunities to learn, rather than threats.
Exactly. And remember those micro habits we discussed? That's a cornerstone of sustaining confidence. Small, consistent actions that reinforce your self-belief. They become so ingrained they feel natural.
So, if I made it a habit to set a small goal each morning and achieve it, that habit reinforces my sense of confidence. Even if the day throws me curveballs, I've already had a win.
You've got it. Those micro habits are like tiny building blocks that constantly reinforce your strong foundation. They're easy to maintain, and their cumulative effect is huge. It's about consistency, not intensity. Instead of trying to overhaul everything at once, you're just making small, consistent positive inputs.
It sounds like the key is to integrate these practices into everyday life so they don't feel like extra chores. And embracing the idea that this is a journey.
Absolutely. And part of that journey is learning to be okay with imperfections, with setbacks. We talked about resilience in action. Setbacks are inevitable. The difference for sustained confidence is how you react to them. Instead of letting a mistake derail you completely, You learn from it, recalibrate, and move forward.
It's about not letting a stumble turn into a fall. You acknowledge it, learn from it, and get back up. And I guess your definition of success also needs to evolve, right?
That's a fantastic point. Your definition of success shouldn't be static. As you grow, as your life circumstances change, so should your understanding of what success looks like. It's less about hitting external milestones and more about internal alignment and consistent effort. This ties back to embracing your authentic self. When you're aligned with your true values and goals, external validation becomes less important.
So, to recap, sustaining confidence over the long game means 1. Stay self aware, like a regular checkup on your mindset. 2. Be adaptable, ready to adjust to life's constant changes. 3. Keep growing, seeing new experiences as learning opportunities. 4. Rely on those consistent micro habits to reinforce your belief. 5. View setbacks as learning moments, not failures. And 6. Let your definition of success evolve with you.
That's a comprehensive summary, Lisa. It's about building a sustainable internal system that supports you, no matter what life throws your way. Quiet confidence isn't about never feeling doubt. It's about having the inner resources to navigate doubt and emerge stronger.
It truly is a lifelong practice, then. Not a mountain you climb once, but a path you walk every day.
Exactly. You've built that unshakable foundation. Now it's about tending to it, nurturing it, and letting it guide you forward.
Thank you, Alex. This has been incredibly valuable. It's reassuring to know that building and maintaining confidence is an achievable, ongoing process.
Next episode, Your Unshakable Foundation, a series conclusion. Welcome back. This is our 18th and final episode of Quiet Confidence.
It's hard to believe we've reached the end. We've journeyed from understanding self-doubt to building a truly solid foundation of confidence.
Absolutely, Lisa. And today we're going to bring it all home by summarizing the core pillars that create that unshakable, quiet confidence, the kind that isn't loud or boastful, but deeply rooted and authentic. We'll recap the essential tools and mindsets that will empower you long after this series concludes.
So, let's get started. Alex, what would you say is the very first building block we laid down for this unshakable foundation?
The very first, and perhaps the most fundamental, was understanding and addressing our internal landscape. Remember when we discussed the whispers of self-doubt and decoding your inner critic? We learned that our thoughts aren't facts, and our inner critic, while sometimes protective, often misinterprets situations. Recognizing this pattern is the first step to disarming it.
That's so true. It's about not letting that critical voice run the show. And then we moved from our minds to our bodies. What was the key takeaway from the embodiment discussions?
Our discussion on the power of embodiment taught us that our body communicates just as much as our words. We explored how posture, breathing, and even subtle physical cues can impact how we feel and how others perceive us. Standing tall, making eye contact, and taking deliberate breaths aren't just about appearing confident. They're about actually feeling more confident. It's a two-way street.
I remember how much that resonated with listeners. It showed that confidence isn't just an abstract idea, but something we can embody physically. Then we really dove into changing our perspectives, right?
Exactly. We covered reframing the narrative and the imposter syndrome unmasked. Reframing is about consciously challenging negative thought patterns and replacing them with more balanced, realistic perspectives. Imposter syndrome, a common hurdle, is often a result of this internal narrative. By reframing our experiences and achievements, we chip away at that feeling of being a fraud.
And that leads directly into owning our growth. We talked about feedback and mistakes.
Indeed, our discussions on the art of receiving feedback and owning your mistakes are crucial. Feedback, both positive and constructive, is a gift for growth. Learning to receive it gracefully, without becoming defensive, allows us to learn and adapt. Similarly, owning our mistakes, not dwelling on them, but learning from them, is a sign of maturity and strength, not weakness. It's how we truly grow.
It's about seeing mistakes as lessons, not failures. And what about speaking up for ourselves?
That was addressed when we explored finding your voice and communication for confidence. Finding your voice means expressing your thoughts, needs, and boundaries clearly and respectfully. This isn't about being aggressive. It's about assertive communication, stating what you need in a way that respects yourself and others. It builds trust and self-respect.
And that connection extends to our relationships, which we covered in confidence in relationships, right?
Precisely. Building confidence in relationships is about setting healthy boundaries. It means understanding what you will and won't accept and communicating those boundaries effectively. This protects your energy and ensures more authentic connections. It's a profound aspect of self-respect.
It sounds like a lot of these concepts are interconnected, building upon each other.
They absolutely are. Think of it like building a strong house. You need a solid foundation that's understanding your mind and body. Then you build the walls of reframing narratives and owning mistakes. The roof is about clear communication and healthy boundaries. But what gives the house its enduring strength? Its ability to withstand storms.
That's where resilience and presence come in, I imagine.
You've got it. Resilience in action is about bouncing back from setbacks. It's not about avoiding difficulty, but about having the inner resources to navigate challenges and emerge stronger. And the power of presence teaches us to be fully engaged in the moment. When you're present, you're not lost in past regrets or future anxieties. You're grounded, aware, and able to respond to life as it unfolds.
So, presence makes us more resilient because we're better equipped to handle what's happening now.
Exactly. And this leads us to the concepts of microhabits and embracing our authentic selves.
Ah, yes, micro habits for macro confidence and embracing your authentic self.
Microhabits are those small, consistent actions, like practicing a confident posture for a minute or identifying one negative thought to reframe each day, that add up to significant long-term change. They're the practical, daily steps that cement our progress. And embracing our authentic self is the ultimate goal. It means accepting who you are with all your strengths and perceived flaws, and letting that genuine self shine through. It's the core of quiet confidence. When you're authentic, you don't need to pretend or seek external validation.
And that ties into breaking free from external validation. It's all about finding that inner source of worth.
Precisely. When you truly embrace your authentic self and build confidence from within, the need for constant approval from others diminishes. You become your own best advocate. Finally, our discussion on the long game reminded us that confidence isn't built overnight. It's a journey, a practice, and a commitment to continuous growth.
So, to recap this incredible series, Alex, our unshakable foundation is built on: first, understanding and quieting our inner critic; second, embodying confidence through our physical presence; third, reframing negative narratives and unmasking imposter syndrome; fourth, learning to receive feedback and own our mistakes as learning opportunities; fifth, finding our voice through clear and assertive communication; sixth, building resilience to navigate setbacks; seventh, cultivating the power of presence to live fully in the moment; eighth, embracing our authentic selves and breaking free from external validation. And all of this is supported by microhabits, the small daily actions that build lasting change.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. This series has aimed to equip you with practical tools and a mindset shift. The confidence we've discussed isn't about arrogance or dominance. It's about a deep, quiet assurance in your own worth and abilities. It's about showing up as your most genuine self, ready to learn, grow, and contribute.
It's about the steady, unwavering belief that you are capable, you are enough, and you have valuable contributions to make. It's a powerful, lasting feeling.
And that, our listeners, is the essence of unshakable confidence. It's not a destination, but a continuous practice. Keep returning to these principles, keep taking those small, consistent steps, and you will continue to build that quiet, unshakable foundation within yourself.
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through quiet confidence. We've truly enjoyed sharing these episodes with you.
It's been an honor to explore these vital concepts together. Keep cultivating your confidence, stay present, and embrace your authentic self every single day. Thanks for listening to the series.